Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. Very recently, the White House made it official that President Trump will pay a visit to Beijing in late March and early April. And according to President Trump himself, he and President Xi Jinping are good friends. And in this meeting, they're going to cover a wide range of topics, such as trade in general, chips, soybeans, American farm produces, and natural gas, and oil, and even arms sales to Taiwan. So this is big. This is something that deserves further investigation. About this trip to Beijing, that it seems that we got an impression President Trump is much more enthusiastic about this trip, and Beijing is not the case. It's quite different. The question is it really so? If we probe the issue deeper, then we can tell that Trump does have a strong sense of urgency about this visit. But in fact, Beijing has a much stronger sense of urgency about the visit. We'll talk about it in details later. So the question is, where does Trump's sense of urgency come from? Well, he's facing a midterm election pretty soon. This is March, and the election will come in early November. Although the Republicans are still enjoying a majority in both chambers, but the majority or the advantage is quite slim. And this midterm election is always disadvantageous to the incumbent party. So that's why Trump is worrying about it. The second thing is, although Trump has been bragging about his performances after coming back to the White House, but the poll doesn't seem to reflect his optimism. And he even recorded a pretty low approval rate very recently, only about 30-some% of approval rate and over 60% of disapproval rate. That's a threat to him, or at least something that worries him. And thirdly, although he's been trying very hard to reverse the trade situation, the trade deficit for the United States is still quite high. It reached as high as 800 billion to 900 billion, although it's been lowered a little bit, but still it's quite high. And lastly, although America's economy is improving, but it's not as good as Trump has anticipated. And in recent days, we have noticed the emergence of some factors which may be disadvantageous to Trump and his team. The first thing is the trade war against Beijing, against Communist China. It doesn't seem as effective as Trump has anticipated, and Beijing has fought back quite powerfully. Firstly, they used the rare earth as the most powerful weapon, and then the EVs, batteries, solar panels, and even transformers or converters. These are the strong items that Beijing has, or the strong cards that Beijing has in their hands in fighting back against the United States in terms of the trade war. And secondly, they seem to shift their market, the exporting market, away from the United States to European countries, to Africa, Latin America, or even to Southeast Asia. And they dump their goods to these markets and almost destroy some of the industries in these economies. They flooded these countries with their own merchandises that bring China a record-breaking trade surplus as high as 1.0 or 1.2 trillion US dollars, and that's record-breaking. Again, the trade war against China, against Communist China, doesn't seem as powerful or as effective as Trump has expected. So that's the first thing that we have noticed. Secondly, Trump's diplomacy seemed to meet with some kind of turbulence or repercussions. Perhaps we can put it that way. The first thing is, of course, his tariff policy. His tariff policy has invited much criticism and much resistance around the world. And secondly, his strong interest in Canada and in Greenland seem to agitate most, if not all, of his Canadian and European allies. It seems that they want to push back all the way. So we don't know what would happen, but something that deserves further attention. And thirdly, it naturally brings about a very strong sense of anti-Trumpism, or a strong sense of anti-Trump, at least himself, around Europe, and of course Canada. They seem to like Mark Rubio a little bit better, especially when he delivered a speech in the Munich Security Conference. So that naturally brings about a strong sense of anti-Trump, in around Europe, especially among the European leaders, not to mention Premier Carney of Canada. That drives some of the European countries closer to Beijing, and many people around the world have noticed it. That also gives Beijing a chance to break its diplomatic isolation for months. So that's something unexpected, at least for some time. The Supreme Court's ruling came as a third blow on Trump, which not only invalidated Trump's emergency tariff power, but also greatly weakened his bargaining position against Beijing in future negotiations. So then next question would be, what would Beijing want? The first thing is, of course, the tariffs. They want a total cancellation of the tariffs against them, and hoping that things will go back to normal, go back to April the 2nd last year, or at least a partial reduction of the tariffs. That's the first thing they want. The second thing, they want the lift on the restriction of exporting the high-end chips from the United States to China, such as H100 chip from NVIDIA and other things. And in addition, other IC or ITs, high-end IC or ITC products, softwares and related services. And then they want Trump to reopen up the channel for exchanges between the two countries, exchange between talents, between research and technology cooperation and things like that. And of course, they want Trump to lower United States' strategic hostility against China, against communist China. And that's something they want. So these are the things that Beijing leaders want from Trump. The question is, how can they get it from Trump? Or what kind of cards they have in their own hands? The first thing is they can pledge to buy more American goods, oil, natural gas, and farm produces, or other things. Well, pledge is pledge, but question is they may not actually do it, just like what happened last time. And secondly, they may say that, well, yeah, we want a trade deal with you, and we're happy to sign one with you. And again, the question is they may not actually do it, just like what happened in 2020 when they were dealing with the trade war 1.0. And the next thing they want is something about Taiwan. They would hope that Trump would make some concessions about Taiwan on the Taiwan issue. For instance, Trump has announced that the United States will sell more arms to Taiwan, of course, of defensive nature. And for sure, Beijing wants to stop the arms sales, or at least partial reduction of the arms sales. And secondly, it has been talking about the change of words on the United States on the part of the United States. United States has been saying that we do not support Taiwan independence. But news has it, or rumor has it, that Beijing hopes that Trump will say, we oppose Taiwan independence. The difference between the two has been made before in our program. The bad thing that Beijing can hope is perhaps a fourth communique, which states the limitation or restriction or total stop of arms sales to Taiwan, or at least United States change of position on the issue of Taiwan independence from do not support Taiwan independence to oppose Taiwan independence. The question is, will Trump say yes to this demand? Having said that, despite the fact that Trump doesn't make any substantive concessions to Beijing, even if he just bring up the topic or the issue of arms sales to Taiwan with Beijing leaders, especially with Xi Jinping, he is making a concession. He is making a concession to Beijing because it is a violation, an obvious violation of the second assurance of the six assurances The second assurance goes, the United States will not discuss with Beijing its arms sales to Taiwan. But again, if Trump is overeager for quick success on the matter, then he may be tricked and fell for it. So that means he'll fall victim of Beijing's reverse psychology. And that's something we have to be vigilant against. And that's something we have to be vigilant about in the coming weeks. Well, that's all I want to share with you today. I hope you like it. If you haven't shared it with your friends, please do so and click the icon bell so that you get a prompt notification. And that's all for today. I'll see you next time.